Mr. All Rats, continuing my video series on the correspondence team match played between my video lessons group and the team CARPE DIEM. This is played on board 192 of 210. Our man is Gands, playing against KingundertheMountian. Notice the spelling. And there's two games. Rating advantage for us is about mid-1500s versus mid-1300s. And hopefully I can help the two players here. We'll see as the games develop. I didn't see a great coordination of forces here. We'll talk about it as we go. Okay, Queen E7 has been played before. Just about every move has been tried in this Ruy Lopez. It's not the most aggressive move. Again, my suggestion, use opening books and databases to learn these openings, play the main lines. It's a perfect correspondence chess is a perfect way to learn openings. If you look up the variations and play them over and find something you're comfortable with. Now here, White makes an unprovoked exchange. Now, this is a developed piece. There's no need to take it. What it does is, in effect, it activates, well, he didn't take with a pawn I would have taken with. I would have taken with a D pawn, okay, because this activates this bishop. This opens up a diagonal for the bishop, okay. Now, it's true it opens up a different diagonal for the bishop, and it supports an eventual d5 push. So objectively, it's not a bad move. It's completely playable, but Black needs to think about getting castled, and by putting the queen on e7, he's blocked his bishop in. So anyway, it does have ideas that maybe this bishop can go to a6 and stop castling, but for one, White could castle right now, and for two, White just shuts that idea down by playing d3. Okay, so now d5, and both sides need to develop. Now Black sees that his pawn is loose, and the best thing to do is just develop a piece. Okay, how do we do that? Well, you can play bishop b7. Now the bishop doesn't seem all that great there, but in the long run it could be. There's nothing forcing White to take, but if he does, then this bishop's getting closer to being active. And also, at some point, Black could take on e4 and then advance his c-pawn, and suddenly this bishop springs to life. Because you want your pieces active. But by closing the center, what Black does is pushes d4. By closing the center, this bishop's going to lose all range and mobility on this diagonal, and it comes back to having to use this one. And also by putting pawns on dark squares, this bishop's future mobility is restricted. So to some degree, the knights are a little better here. The knights favor closed positions. Okay, so now Black does develop his bishop. But look, nothing's going on the king side, unless Black's planning to castle queen side here. And White makes a peculiar move here. It doesn't want double pawns, and I think if you asked just about any chess player what they would play here, they would all say knight from e2 to g3. And it makes perfectly logical sense. It puts the knight on a decent square, but White defies logic and puts it on g1. And this doesn't seem to make sense. How's this knight going to get redeveloped? If it goes to h3, well, you're going to might get it chopped off, and you have a shattered pawn structure on the king side. So now Black does recognize that he needs to develop his king side, and sends the queen over to the queen side, where it's really not doing anything. Of course, White's not doing much either, and we're starting to see what I was talking about at the beginning of the video, where both sides need a little help coordinating their forces. They've got pieces out, but they're not doing anything. Okay, none of them are working together. Black still has his king side undeveloped, so they're not doing anything. The bishop on g4 is providing a pin, and that's about it. Let's see how it goes. Okay, so now h3. Now I think the best move is just come back to h5. But Black helps White out by capturing. And suddenly that knight on g1 that had looked so grim is now back in the game. So I think White has done well on that exchange and probably has a slightly better game. And now black sends the queen off to give a check. It doesn't seem to make sense. Where's the queen going to go next? This allows white to develop a piece, and then black goes and attacks a pawn. He doesn't attack it from the correct square. If you're going to attack the pawn, well, actually, maybe you need to protect this. But here white commits strategic error. White plays queen c1, wanting to hold on to that b pawn. But this would be a perfect time to just kick the queen, and if the queen takes the pawn, this pawn falls on e5, and now this knight has a permanent outpost on c4, which will evict the black queen at his leisure, and white definitely has the better position here. And here's black with an undeveloped kingside, which is not helping. So this would have been a better move for white. So anyway, queen c1, and now black decides he needs to get going on the king side. So here at move 12, he develops his bishop, where all it does is defend a pawn. So it's kind of like a tall pawn, we call this. The bishop resembles a pawn, except it's a little taller, right? And it's part of a pawn chain. Okay, and white castles. And then I guess white decides he doesn't want his b pawn under fire, so he can free his queen. He decides to move it. Why did he do that earlier? If he didn't want to play a4 like I suggested, the queen would have been so misplaced over here on c1. Okay, so now black does decide to castle kingside, and knight goes to g6, and he's like to go to f4 at some point. And black evicts the bishop. And now, since this bishop is not really doing much for black at all, black decides he's going to cement it down on c3, which makes sense. I didn't mention, but pushing b3 did weaken this c3 square. Did I say c6? I got them mixed up. Okay. And now another tempo on the queen. Queen goes back to where she started, and now c5. And this is designed to get this queen back in play. But really, the black pawns they've about gone as far as they can on the queen side. The only possible way to open up anything on that side of the board is to push a4. But maybe if black tries a5, white will just lock the queen side pawns up once and for all. Okay, anyway. That just drives the bishop where it wants to go, and it does make a3 a little weak, at least for now. And now the queen redeploys over to the king side where she belongs, because that's where the action is, because the queen side's pretty much locked up. And now I've been talking about these rook pawn moves. This one just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't really weaken black's position too much, but I guess maybe black wants to play f5, doesn't want a knight going to g5 perhaps, but black can't play f5. e5 is under fire, so I don't quite understand h6. Just a kind of a wasted move. And now it looks like white's going to head for a nice outpost that I was talking about earlier. And now here's a mistake. Why weaken your own king side? Okay. This just allows black to attack h3. See, a simple move would be just bring the knight to c4, and if knight f4, take it. Just take it off, okay? And white should be fine. Anyway, g3. This allows knight f4 with an attack on h3 because it's now weak. And there's a free pawn. But black now commits kind of an error here, I think. But white proceeded to bungle the game here very quickly. f5 is something black's been wanting to get in for a while, but he wasn't quite prepared to do it. He didn't cover e5, and a better move would have been bring this rook over to e8 and batten down the hatches on that square. Then you can play f5. And white's able to come in and capture this unprotected pawn. But here White misses his best shot. White's best move was f4. This secures the knight, and it also takes g5 away from this knight. So this knight's looking a little loose here. But you know, even game more or less. Anyone's victory is possible. Let's see. Let's try a couple of pawn exchanges. Okay. The knight's protected. It's not easy to go and assault it, but then how's it going to help black? Let's see. Is g5 playable? Can white try anything with the plan of king g2 and queen h5, trying to trap that knight? Let's see. White to play. Well, let's go ahead and try this move. Queen h5. Okay. Now let's see. Takes. I'm just analyzing here, just kind of picking moves, trying to find a new square for the bishop. Pressure this. Maybe f5. No, white has a couple of advanced protected pass pawns. That frees g5 for the black knight, but that will unprotect h6. No, the queen's still guarding it, provided it stays on the third rank. Now, this could get dangerous here. Can white sacrifice? Let's see. This is obviously not forced, but white's got some pressure here. Okay. Fortunately for black, this square is covered, but I don't know. This could get dangerous. White sacrifice in exchange. This is just the start of an analysis. I go through these games. I just offer ideas. The objective, if you want to get better, is you sit there and you tear these things apart. I can't sit here and prove what would happen, but clearly black will get the benefit of the doubt here and get a good game, because white misses his good chance by not playing f4. Let's see what happened. Let's see. Let's go back. See, f4 was a good move. Instead, white. Whoops, he doesn't play f4. He plays knight f3, and this allows a win of a piece for black. Okay, this puts pressure on f3. If the knight moves, there's knight f2 check. That's annoying. And then comes a pin, and there's nothing white can do about it. The knight is doubly attacked. It can only be defended with the king, and that just allows this knight to come back to g5, and white's going to lose a piece. So had white tried something a little different with f4, anything could have happened, and I've just started the analysis on that. We could spend 24 hours analyzing all the possibilities arising from f4, and guess what? With 3-day per move time limit, and if you're only playing a couple of games, guess what? You can do it. You can spend a lot of time and find all the right lines, and that's one of the reasons I'm doing this whole video series is, get you guys to slow down, get you guys to analyze, try possibilities, and hopefully improve your chess. So we did it in the old days when we knew how to play correspondence chess. Okay, let's bring up the other game. And it starts us on move 11. We never know where it's going to start it at. It's supposed to start right here. Okay. And here, I really have to criticize white for his next move. I mean, I've been talking about these rook pawn moves, and boom, there it is. I mean, you have access to books. What are you trying to do here? Stop this bishop from coming to g4? My goodness. Aren't you familiar with the famous game Morphy? Paul Morphy played back in, 1858, in the opera game versus the Countess Ord and Duke of Brunswick? I mean, aren't you familiar with that game? Here it is. See if I can do it from memory. Okay, let's see. Attacking this square, knight f6. This comes over here. Queen comes up to e7. Morphy doesn't grab the pawn. It develops a knight. This goes here. And b5. And suddenly black is all pinned up everywhere he can look. Okay, let's see. Let's he play rook d8 here? Yeah, rook d8. Then Morphy sacks again. And this is the finish. And check. And mate. Notice how Morphy got every single one of his pieces in the game. Okay. So, I've got the video up on these rook pawn moves. It's linked. If you click the link to the team match and scroll down through the comments, you'll see I've been posting all the PGNs of all the games where people are pushing their rook pawns. And somewhere in there is the link to the article. It's on my playlist, How to Play the Openings. It's number 4. I mean, these are just terrible moves. And, it's something that players unfamiliar with chess didn't learn it on the internet and not through books and chess clubs and real face-to-face tournaments. They've developed it on their own to keep bishops and knights out of these squares. That's where these come from, and you don't need to fear these. And I'm doing my best to fix things. Anyway, now White proceeds to go, we'll say, bonkers. Watch his next 2 moves. Okay, White needs to develop his pieces. Moves a piece twice in the opening to grab a bishop. Black covers so he can take back with the queen and not have to have double pawns. Now look at that, knight b5. What is this doing? I have to try to solve this on my own. It seems like what White's wanting to do is play knight takes, and the idea is Black doesn't want to get double pawns, so Black will take back with the queen, and then oh look, we get a nice little fork here. Queen, king, and rook all under fire. What Black should just do is develop this knight. And here I've pointed this out in a few other videos. Black could get the upper hand here rather easily. Now you got to take back with the pawn. You want to take back with the pawn. Video 150 has an example of this. These pawns, these double pawns, are controlling a whole lot of territory, and this weakness could haunt White. Here, I'll show you how. Let's just develop some pieces. Let's put this here. Now Black shouldn't waste time kicking this knight back. Just let it come back and play on its own. Okay, now we're going to put the queen on F. Well, let's see. Yeah, let's put it on F7. I think we're going to have to kick that knight out in a minute. Okay, because we can't put the bishop on E7. Okay, so we'll drive it back. Fine. And now here, this comes here and castles. And let's develop the bishop. And suddenly there comes knight H5. And Black's got the better game here. There's a lot of pressure coming White's way. The fact that this pawn is up on H3 makes it weaker, makes it a target. It's very, Black will be having threats here. He's got this half-open rook file to operate on. I like Black a lot here. And, White wasted time by playing H3 and moving his knights around. So Black has more chances in that position than White, I think. So let's go back to where we were. I have to find it here in the PGN. Let's see. Okay, so knight b5, Black plays knight a6. That way, I can take back with the queen and not have double pawns. Well, you want double pawns because of the f-file. Okay, so at some point, White should be playing d4, trying to activate the bishop, but instead thinks maybe he's going to fianchetto. Fianchetto against a solid pawn setter. Okay. Now he decides to kick that knight back, and he takes for the queen. He didn't want the double pawn, so my suspicion was true why the knight went to a6. He still could have done what I suggested. Take with the f-pawn and go about your business with you know, with this plan. Okay. I guess you have to stop and protect the knight at some point, but you get the idea. Anyway, oh, there's the purpose of b3, to attack the queen. It was anticipating the queen would take back. Okay, so now he decides to bring the knight back on his own. Didn't belong on b5, and black decides the knight doesn't belong on a6. So he puts it back on b8. He did that last game, retreated a knight to another square. Well, why not put it on c5? Then it has a chance to go to e6, and it's eyeballing f4 and d4. I mean, this is a nice square for a knight, e6, because of the pressure on those two squares. Anyway, knight b8, white castles. Now he gets the knight on c6. It could have been there all along, as I pointed out. Okay, now white just says, oh, I'm going to pin it. And now black decides he's going to kick it out. It goes back to where it started. But now there's a little weakness on the queen side. These rook pawn moves are just not good. Now, they're worse if you're playing them before a piece gets there, just to keep them out. But this weakness is going to come up here in just a little bit, as we will see. Now, inexplicably, white decides, well, I don't want the bishop on c4 after all. It wasn't under attack. The best I can see is he's hoping black moves this knight and he can pin the queen. And I guess black wants to move his knight, so he decides to break the pin ahead of time by retreating his queen. Okay, well, now white succeeded in shutting his bishop in. And now black makes a strategic error and rids white of the piece that he has voluntarily made a bad piece. So that was a bad move. Okay, now white thanks him very much for getting rid of that bad bishop. Now, white's bishop is better. Look at all these pawns on light squares, almost all of them, right? Almost all of them. And look at the pawns on dark squares for black. 5 out of 8. This bishop suffers, doesn't have scope. Okay, so now comes rook g8. I guess he's envisioning a g5, g4 push. I could have played g5 right there, but he didn't. Okay. Now black decides doesn't want the knight on f6 after all. I guess maybe he's going to try for f5 at some point. Hard to say. And here, black commits a huge mistake, and so does white. White has the right idea here, but he goes to the wrong square. Okay, queen c3 threatens a mate in 1. But a better move was queen a5, and now we'll see why this a6 pawn was weak. Okay, this threatens an immediate mate. You got to deal with it. How are you going to do that? Well, you're going to lose a pawn is how you're going to do that. You can put the knight on b6, and after knight takes, pawn takes, queen takes, white's bagged a pawn, or even take with the bishop, I suppose, or just take with the bishop directly. Bishop takes, pawn takes, and knight takes check, and the attack is on. Or you can play b6, and white just picks up a pawn, and that black king isn't looking too safe. First thing that strikes me is a4 with the idea of a5. Let's smash that king open. So white missed a good move. And he only played the queen to c3, and black has resources. So because of the pin, white can play a4, breaks the pin. Now the knight's under pressure. Now, fortunately, white didn't go grab that horrible bishop of black's. He kept his knight on the board, what'll do him some good. And now clearly white's trying to attack on the queen side. Black needs to do the same thing over here, okay? Get something going. And it's one of the drawbacks of white pushing this pawn to h3. It creates tension quicker. Black can bust open some lines on the king side if he'll do it. But now he decides to bring the knight back to f6 anyway. So black's just wasting all kind of time and not getting his attack going. And now white decides I don't want the bishop there anyway. So let's back this up here. This is the position. Basically, it's white's move. And by playing his bishop to b6 and retreating it, in effect, what white is saying is, hey, black, it's my move, but I don't want to move. I'll make a deal with you. I'll let you make 2 moves in a row as long as one of them is rook c8. That's what, in effect, what white is doing here. Because here it's black's move. I'm sorry, here it's white's move. And watch the change in the positions. I'm going to click it to when it becomes black's move. Nothing will change on white's part, and all that changes on black's part is that rook goes to c8, and now it's black's move. So black takes his free move and puts his queen on d7. Okay? Well, white tries again. Has to move now. He puts his rook back on d1. Now you put it on b1. Why not clear the knight out of there and get ready for b4, b5? Now, here's your target right there. Okay? So white's wasting a lot of time. And black plays in the center. And off comes the knight that white could have used to help attack. And now there's the queen's under attack, not to mention a fork is threatened. But I guess the fork isn't really threatened because you take the queen. And each side get a pawn, and white gets a mate threat, but that's covered. And all of a sudden, all these pieces are getting chopped off, and white's attack is over. And neither side has started their respective attack. And in effect, the game is essentially even. Now, at this point, probably the best move for black is just put his rook on, double his rook gc8. He's got a nice battery, and the game should probably end in a draw. But why get rid of a nice rook on the 7th when you don't have to? Well, that's what black does. Maybe his idea was to play here. I don't know. Well, he could have played this rook here and attacked the queen. So rook c6 was not a good plan. Now white goes on the open file. Now black comes up with the right move. And off come a couple of rooks. And objectively the game should end in a draw, but black's going to bungle it here shortly. Okay, so now white's got the open file that black could have stayed in control of. And I suppose black could still play rook c6 and have an even game, but instead he starts bungling pawns. Brings the king into where it can be attacked, and off comes a pawn. And now the game is in white's favor. And another check. And off comes another pawn. And now suddenly black is in an ending down 2 pawns. He bungled 2 pawns. So it's just a matter of time before white wins this. There goes the 3rd pawn. And black's going to get one back. But it's almost too little too late now. The white pawns are getting far advanced, and there's really not much of a defense. But if you want your rooks behind pawns if you can, but I think it's pretty hopeless at this stage. White just got that strong pawn majority, and just activates the king, and there's really no defense. White now has a dominating rook on the 7th rank. Remember when black had one there? Well, now white does. And the white king is getting active and chasing the rook out. And off comes another pawn. Game is over. They play on a few more moves. And white can pick his way to win this. And, white would beat Magnus Carlsen in this position. Okay? And now a little trick trying to play check here and win the rook. But white is savvy to that, and now gets the rook over here threatening a skewer or a hurdle, further deactivating the black king. And now the rook just comes back, and there's no defense to rook e8 check. And now the pawn's threatening to promote, but rook e8 check comes, and a queen. And black resigned here. Black is going to be mated shortly. In effect, he can play b5 and white can just ignore it. White doesn't even need to promote the pawns. The point being that eventually this king has to move, and then he just walks right into mate. That can only be stalled by shoving pawns. But like I say, white can just ignore it. Okay, he'll push. Let's just go ahead and push this pawn. Well, you can bring the king up here, I suppose, but yeah, go ahead and make a queen. But no real hope. Anyway, I hope those helped both players, because this video helps both players, because there's certainly a lot of room for improvement on getting your pieces coordinated. And again, look these openings up in the books. You're allowed to. And this way you'll learn the openings while you're at it. Anyway, thanks so much for your time. And there's currently 11 games left in this match, played on 9 boards. So just waiting for more results to come in. There'll be some more videos. Okay? Thanks a lot.